In this video, let's take a look at practice quiz number 9 on operations with polynomials. And number 1, it says simplify the following expression. 2 times the quantity x squared minus 3x plus 4 minus 5 times the quantity x squared plus x. So the first thing we want to do is distribute the 2 to this first trinomial. So we would get 2x squared minus 6x plus 8. And then we want to distribute the negative 5 to the binomial. So we would get minus 5x squared minus 5x. Then we want to look for like terms that we can put together with the highest exponent first. So we have 2x squared minus 5x squared will give us negative 3x squared. So combine the numbers in the front, but leave the exponent the same on your variable. We're just combining them because they have matching variables and matching exponents on those variables. So the next term we will go with is negative 6x minus 5x. So negative 6 minus 5 is negative 11x. And then we have an 8 that doesn't go with anything else, so we'll just bring that down. So then that is our final answer, negative 3x squared minus 11x plus 8. Number 2 says to multiply, and I can see that we have a binomial squared. So you want to write it twice because that's really what the square means, is you have 2x minus 4 times itself. And then you can either use the box method or the FOIL method. Either one is fine. I'm going to use both in this video, but on your quiz, you would just pick which one you're most comfortable with and use that method. So in the box method, I'm going to put 2x minus 4 on the side of the box and at the top of the box. And then I'm going to multiply and fill in my terms. So I have 2x times 2x gives me 4x squared in this first box. And then I have 2x times negative 4 is negative 8x in the second box on the top. Now I don't want you to think these little lines are any part of the number, so I'm going to erase those. Negative 4 times 2x will go in this bottom first box, so that'll be negative 8x. And then negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. Then you want to combine the two that are diagonal from one another. So negative 8 plus negative 8 combines to be negative 16x. So we end up with 4x squared minus 16x plus 16. So that's the box method. The FOIL method is just to keep them in parentheses and multiply in the order of the first, the outside, the inside, and the last. So first means the first two terms in each parentheses. So 2x times 2x is 4x squared. The O is outside, so that means the two that are furthest out from each other, or the two on the outside of each binomial. So 2x times negative 4 is negative 8x. The I is inside, so those are the two in each parentheses that are closest together. So negative 4 times 2x is negative 8x again. And then last is our L, and that means the last term in each parentheses. So negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. And then again, you want to add the two in the middle if possible, or sometimes they cancel out, but not always. So 4x squared, and then negative 8 and negative 8 add up to be negative 16x, and then plus 16. So notice either way you do it, you get the same answer. And on your quiz, you only need to pick one of these methods to show your work. Let's move on to number 3. 3 says to multiply, and we have x minus 3 squared times 4x minus 1. So x minus 3 squared is another binomial squared, so I would write that twice. And again, you need to use the box method or the FOIL method, just like we did in number 2. So if I use the box again, I'm just going to pick that method since it's very popular and use that, but you could also use the FOIL method. I would get x times x is x squared, negative 3 times x is negative 3x, x times negative 3 is negative 3x, and negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. I'm going to add the two that are diagonal from one another together. So I get x squared minus 6x plus 9. But then I'm going to multiply that by this other binomial that's here. So I'm not finished yet. I need to use a bigger box. And again, I'm just choosing the box method since it's popular, but you could do it by distributing as well. So I'm going to put the binomial 4x minus 1 on the side of this larger box, and then this trinomial at the top, since I have 3 columns. So x squared minus 6x plus 9 at the top. And then just like the 2 by 2 box is filled in, the 2 by 3 box works the same way. So 4x times x squared would give me 4x cubed. 4x times negative 6x is negative 24x squared. And 4x times 9 is 36x. Then negative 1 times x squared would be negative x squared. Negative 1 times negative 6x is positive 6x. And then negative 1 times 9 is negative 9. Then we want to add the ones that are diagonal, because they are the ones that would be our like terms, if we have any. And so 4x cubed is that first term, that just stays like it is. We have negative 1x squared plus negative 24x squared adds up to be negative 25x squared. 6x plus 36x is 42x. And then that negative 9 at the end will just stay that way. So then I have all my terms in my polynomial by multiplying 2 binomials together first. You've got to do this one in 2 steps. So there's no way to shortcut it. You've got to FOIL the first 2 and then take that and multiply by the one that was left. So that would be it for number 3. Number 4 says to divide and then answer the question, is 3x minus 2 a factor of the polynomial? Notice that's what we're dividing by, so they want to know if our divisor is a factor. So I'm going to get a little smaller pen for this one to have plenty of room to write this out. So I can tell I have a 3 in the front of my divisor. So I want to go ahead and use long division, since that'll be the best method for this one. So I'm going to set it up. So put your binomial that you're dividing by out front, and then the polynomial that you're dividing into underneath that big division bar. So then we take the first term on the outside and we decide, what do I have to multiply 3x by to get that first term underneath? So 3x times what will give me 6x cubed. And what works best is 2x squared, or that's the term that we're missing. So 2x squared times 3x would help me to get 6x cubed. So I'm going to put that at the top. I'm going to multiply that term by the 2 terms out front and bring them both down here to this next level. So 2x squared times 3x is 6x cubed. Notice they match and we want them to match. 2x squared times negative 2 is negative 4x squared. And then make sure you subtract both of those terms. So change the sign. The first 2 always cancel out. And then you combine what's left over. So then what's left is negative 25x squared plus 4x squared. So that's negative 21x squared. And then I'm going to bring down what's left. And notice I now have a trinomial. My polynomial got a little smaller, and it will do that on each step. So now we're going to do the same thing we did on that first step. We're just going to repeat those same steps until we're finished. So 3x times what will give us negative 21x squared, our new first term underneath our division bar. That's what I'm trying to say. So 3x times what will give us negative 21x squared is our next thought we need to think about. So negative 7x is what we are missing. It's what we need. So I'm going to put that at the top. Then multiply that by the 2 terms out front and bring those both down. So let's bring down negative 7x times 3x is negative 21x squared. And negative 7x times negative 2 is positive 14x. Then make sure you change the signs because we're subtracting. So minus a negative becomes a positive 21x squared. And I'm going to subtract the 14x. So those first 2 will cancel out, and then we add what's left. So we have 2 plus negative 14, or 2 minus 14, is negative 12x, and then just bring down the 8. So notice we now have a binomial. So we started off with a polynomial of 4 terms, then we had a trinomial. Each time you divide, it's reducing the polynomial, we call it. So let's do another step the same way we did the first two. So we want to take 3x that's on the outside and figure out what do we have to multiply to get the first term underneath. So 3x times what gives us negative 12x is our next thought. So 3x times negative 4 will give us negative 12x. So put that at the top, multiply by what's out front, and bring those both down underneath. So negative 4 times 3x is negative 12x, and negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. Then make sure to change the signs because you're subtracting both of those terms. And then the negative 12 and the positive 12x cancels out, the 8 and the negative 8 cancel out, and you end up with actually no remainder for this one. And so we have our quotient, which is 2x squared minus 7x minus 4. And then because there is no remainder, we would say that 3x minus 2, or what we divided by, is a factor of the polynomial. So I'm going to write that. There is no remainder because we ended up with a 0. And therefore, we know 3x minus 2 is a factor of this polynomial. So that's it for number 4. Let's look at this last one, and we can check down here. Yes, 3x minus 2 is a factor. I was just trying to make sure you don't forget that part on your quiz. So that'll be the same way your quiz looks. Find the remainder, use the factor theorem to determine whether x plus 4 is a factor of g of x equals 3x to the 4th plus x cubed minus 2x squared plus x plus 12. So there's actually 2 ways you could work this out. If you want to know if x plus 4 is a factor, you can use synthetic division is one way to do it. Or you can use synthetic substitution. Either way, you get the same result. So synthetic division, I'm going to do first in green. So if I want to do synthetic division, I take the root of x plus 4, which is negative 4, and I put it in a box to the left. Then bring down your coefficients of the polynomial that you're dividing into. So you have 3, 1, negative 2, 1, and 12. And then bring down the first term. So I have 3. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Then I always add those numbers together. So 1 plus negative 12 is negative 11. Negative 11 times negative 4 is 44. Then add those up, and we get 42. 42 times negative 4 is negative 168. Then you add those up, and you get negative 167. And then negative 167 times negative 4. Let's see, I'm going to grab my calculator. Where did my calculator go? Let's see. There it is. Let's just use a calculator for that one because I don't really want to think that hard at the moment. So negative 167 times negative 4 is 668. And then plus 12, we get 680. So we're just trying to find the remainder. So the remainder is 680. So make sure to put that in that blank. And check 1, this would be a no because we have a remainder. It is not a factor. So if we wanted to do it the other way, we would do synthetic substitution. So synthetic substitution means you plug in the root for the x value. So I would just say 3, and then in place of x, for each one of these x's, I'm going to put that root of negative 4. So negative 4 to the 4th plus negative 4 cubed minus 2 times negative 4 squared plus negative 4 plus 12. Make sure you plug it in for each x. Don't forget any of those. And then let's use our calculator here. So I'm going to type it in just like I wrote it. It's definitely good to use parentheses. So 3 times negative 4 to the 4th power plus negative 4 to the 3rd power minus 2 times negative 4 squared plus negative 4 plus 12. And notice we get the same result with synthetic substitution that we got with synthetic division. So it's certainly okay to do this problem either way, and you don't have to do it both ways. But that's it for practice quiz number 9.